Hello again. Last week we talked about the skeletal system and looked at osteogenesis imperfecta. This week with the muscular system, I want to talk a little bit about a muscle disorder known as muscular dystrophy. More common form of it is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And the background here is a micrograph of muscle cells of someone with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So muscular dystrophy in general is just a progressive weakening or loss of muscle. And you can see that on this picture, normal bicep, nice thick muscle here. Someone with muscular dystrophy, it's lessened. There's less, and it's progressive. All right, so that means it's going to get worse over their lifetime. Most, people with muscular dystrophy, I think a lot of them can walk initially, but then as it gets worse, they lose that ability. Muscular dystrophy is genetic, so the only way to get this is through the genes. You can't catch it. Either you have it or you don't. And then Duchenne is the most common form of it that I could find, but there are many different types of it. So we're going to spend the rest of the time just talking about Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So it's the Duchenne muscular dystrophy is X-linked recessive, and just kind of go back and review what we learned about genetics. Remember, the males have the X and the Y, so you're going to get the muscular dystrophy from your mother, who's got the X chromosome. You get the Y from your father. So it's more prevalent in males, as most X-linked recessive genes are. And then mothers are typically carriers, and females can get it, but remember, in order for a female to have it, their father would then be affected, and they'd have to have both X chromosomes with the Duchenne's muscular dystrophy mutation. And then approximately a third of the cases happens from a random mutation, which is also possible, right? A mutation that knocks out that gene is also possible. And then this picture kind of illustrates the progressive nature of the disease, right? You kind of at 2, but again, they're usually they could be delayed in walking and whatnot. And then at 8, you got the scoliosis going on, the curvature. And then most adolescents end up in a wheelchair by 15 or so. Right? You just can't walk. You don't have the muscle strength to walk anymore. Some early symptoms of the muscular dystrophy are muscle weakness, early childhood, delayed motor skills like walking, and movement, delayed growth. I found this one interesting. I didn't look in as to why, but they can be enlarged calf muscles. And so here you got the calf muscles, usually enlarged, but not always, which I thought was interesting. I don't know why that, and I couldn't find an answer as to why the muscles got large, but intriguing. So that's the early kind of thing. And genetically, it goes to a particular gene, right, for Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, or DMD. It's the DMD gene. It affects the production of dystrophin, which is a protein in muscle cells. Right, and this protein in muscle cells acts as a kind of a support bridge between the actin, which is important in muscle contraction itself, and then the plasma membrane. Right, so it's this kind of anchor between the two, and it's going to attach to this protein complex in the cell surface. Right, so this adds muscle strength to the cells, and it helps protect them during muscle contraction. I was also reading, I couldn't get a good handle on confirm this or get more specifics on it, but it also, I believe, if I understand it right, is also involved in some cell signaling pathways, allowing things into the cell or out of the cell, some cellular communication, something of that sort. But people with muscular dystrophy, this dystrophin is non-functional. Most of the time, it's what's called a forgot my term here, missense mutation, or frameshift mutation, and all of the sequence of the DNA and the mRNA to be translated. That sequence, like AUG, the start codon, gets messed up. It all gets shifted down, and you end up with a bunch of codons that don't really make the dystrophin. So you're making, and it only takes one copy to not make enough, and that is the main issue, is this one protein dystrophin. What will happen then as a result is, and then this is where it kind of goes back to where I get the sense that there's some other aspect besides anchoring, that there's also this aspect of cellular transportation involved. But as it weakens, as this dystrophin gets weaker, it's lacking in these cells. Cells become permeable, right? As they become permeable, they allow more things into the cell. When the cell enlarges, gets large, maybe that's why the calf cell gets large, and then those cells burst, right? And then what replaces those cells that have burst is scar tissue and some fat cells, some adipose tissue. And you can look here, there's this normal muscle tissue. Get these cells nice and firm and connected to each other. And then somebody with this Duchenne's muscular dystrophy on the right, and you can see that there's a lot of spaces. I believe that's the fat tissue is now replaced it in between. And just looking at these pictures, you can see where it's pretty evident that if you have this disease, you're going to have muscle loss. And it's and as you get older, it's going to get worse and worse. Some of the complications of Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and if you're weakening muscles, the two big ones you're worried about would be like the heart or the muscles that help you breathe. And cardiomyopathy is one of the conditions that happens as you age. One of the complications, and I picked this one. There are different kinds of cardiomyopathy, but I couldn't determine which one was more prevalent with muscular dystrophy. And what's going to happen, you have a weakened heart muscle, and the heart ends up enlarging, and severe, eventually it can lead just to heart failure and obviously death. Or a lot of people with older or advanced cases of muscular dystrophy end up on ventilators because their respiratory muscles can no longer work sufficiently in order for them to breathe. So again, with a cardiomyopathy, in one form you get this thickening of the cardiac muscle. And the average life expectancy for somebody with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is 26. And 1 in 3,500 is the case rate for it, which, if my math is right, leads to approximately 96,000 people in the United States that are currently have the disease. I didn't say this last week, but last week there was somewhat of a personal connection to osteogenesis imperfecta. We know somebody, family who has it, and this week it's the same. Went to high school with a guy that had muscular dystrophy. And met him in high school, and he was confined to a wheelchair by the time that we made it to high school. A nice kid, very friendly, had a couple classes with him, we talked to him. He fortunately, he surpassed the life expectancy, but he passed away a number of years ago, but he lived to be about 31. And his name was Patrick. So, anyway, on that note, hope enjoy the long weekend.